Hello, hello, hello. Hope you're doing well today. So, I wanted to do an episode all about the 5 things that I have given up for anxiety. I posted this on my Instagram a little while ago and it was a really popular post. And I think we talk a lot about the things that we do to help ourselves with anxiety, but actually, what are the things that we are cutting out or not doing anymore or missing out on, even purposefully, because we want to put our mental health first. So I wanted to talk about this and share some of the things that I have done and things that have helped me. Before we get into this episode, just want to remind you that I've got a little cheeky discount on my online shop for podcast listeners. If you head on over to my website, karma-u.com/shop, you're going to see not only all my free resources, but also the paid things that you can get involved in, different courses and hypnotherapy sessions for public speaking, for high functioning anxiety, for various different things on there. And I've got a discount code, which is podcast 15, all in capitals, podcast 15. If you put that code in, you can save 15%. Okay, so the first thing that I gave up because of anxiety was living in London. I lived in London for over 10 years. I grew up in the north of England in Lancashire, had a dream to live in London, always felt that was like my spiritual home and that I was going to end up being there. My parents are Londoners and I never quite felt at home and like I belonged in the north. So I loved living in London for 10 years. And in 2020, like a lot of people, I left the big city or a big city and moved back to my hometown. Now, if you had told me at 16 or 18 that I would end up moving back to this town that I grew up in, I would never, ever in a million years have believed it. I was so desperate to leave. Even weirdly, even like a few months before we moved back here, I was still a hard no to moving back. My dad suggested, why don't you buy a house round the corner from us? And I was like, no. But I started to come around to the idea because I wanted to have a baby. And I was having gone through so much anxiety, low mood, feeling lonely in my life at a lot of points. I was actually really worried about what my mental health would be like while being pregnant and also while having a baby. And so a big part of my decision for wanting to leave London and moving back to my hometown was to help my mental health. And very luckily, the things that I was worrying about did not transpire. So I didn't end up experiencing anxiety or depression or anything postpartum like that. And yet, still, I can see how being near family, having that support, having a bit of a slower pace of life, not paying as much rent, for example, being in the north of England has had a positive impact on my mental health. And there's definitely things that I have given up to make that decision, things that I'm missing out on, definitely. So I really miss my friends. I really miss my gorgeous little flat in Hackney Wick, a little converted, it wasn't that little, but fairly little, converted warehouse, which was absolutely beautiful. I've missed out on career opportunities. So it is a sacrifice, but it has been overall worth it. And to have that family support and to see my son getting to be with his grandparents and all that sort of thing has been worth it. And ultimately, I think for my mental health as well. So, number 2, things that I've given up for anxiety. Number 2 is hustling. Hustling. I don't know if that slightly relates back to living in London, where there can be just this energy of pushing, hustling, overworking, burnout, being out every night or going to different places every day, zipping around town to different meetings. There's definitely a different pace of life, but certainly something that I have really embraced and that has helped me to be calmer is letting go of some of the hustle, letting go of some of that need to be working at such a fast pace, having all these ambitions, which can be amazing. And I think ambition can be a really lovely thing. But if it is causing us to feel exhausted, if we're feeling burned out, if we're feeling like we're constantly chasing and never arriving, if we're constantly doing and not being, then that is a massive problem, in my opinion. And so letting a lot of that go, embracing a slower pace of life, being okay with missing out on things, being okay with not achieving certain goals because I'm putting enjoyment of my life day to day first has been really freeing for me. So for me, it has a lot to do with focusing on being rather than doing, knowing that my self worth is not linked to how productive I am or how much I get done in a day. Being able to really accept that some days a lot's going to get done, other days not a lot is going to get done. And anyone who's got a young child will know that this is just something that you have to learn to accept, and prioritizing peace and calmness in the day to day rather than thinking I'll be able to relax when this big project's over, or I'll be able to relax when I've made this amount of money, or whatever it might be. I think your days make up your life, and we have to prioritize how we feel day to day, because otherwise we're going to wake up when we're 80 and realize that we never actually gave ourselves permission to slow down and enjoy things. So number 3, things that I've given up. I haven't completely given this up, I have to be honest. I go through phases. But it's a bit weirdly taboo to talk about this. I generally don't have sugar. So I haven't completely given it up, but 6 days out of the week, I don't have sugar. And I realize that talking about things to do with food and diet can be triggering for some people. And if you are somebody that has struggled with eating disorders or disordered eating in any way, then feel free to disregard this, because you may not want to have rules for yourself and it may actually be counterproductive. But for me, I have found such a strong link between eating sugar and my mental health. And it's fine if I have it once a week and I might have a lovely dessert, sticky toffee pudding with ice cream, for example, or something like that once a week. But if I have it every day, I feel as though my body is inflamed. And when you're welcome to do your own research on this, but you will find that there is a scientifically proven link between eating a lot of sugar and higher incidences of depression and anxiety. There are real reasons why this happens. And depending on your physiology and depending on your gut health and all these sorts of things, you may not experience this. You may be completely fine with having a bit of sugar every day. For me personally, I found that it makes a big difference. And interestingly, I noticed that it impacts my confidence. If I eat a lot of sugar, I start to doubt myself more. I start to not feel good about myself. And so I really try to just stick to once a week. And that seems to work really well for me. I have gone through phases of getting quite into kind of sugar-free baking and like sugar-free desserts and cooking with xylitol. And actually the other day I made Madeline Shaw's chocolate mug cake, which is made out of banana, egg. So what was it? It was 1 mashed banana, 1 egg, 2 tablespoons of almond flour, some cocoa powder, and I think 2 tablespoons of some kind of maple syrup or something. And I use xylitol instead, and put it in the microwave for a minute. You can find the recipe on her Instagram. But I made that the other day, and that was also quite a good substitute when you've got a craving for something sweet, but you don't want to make yourself feel like absolute crap. Another thing that I will do is I will sometimes have a hot chocolate or a hot cacao made of soy milk and some stevia. I get stevia drops and I'll put them in a hot drink occasionally to have that. And that also feels like a little sweet treat without having the sugar. All right, number 4, things that I've given up. This one might upset a few people. So I haven't drunk coffee for a couple of years now. I went back to coffee when I was living in Bali. If anyone's ever been to Bali, you will know that the cafe culture is amongst the best in the world. There are so many amazing coffee shops, beautiful places to get food. And I thought to myself, maybe in Bali, I can drink coffee and it's not going to make me really anxious. And I was drinking these gorgeous iced lattes in these lovely cafes in Bali. And I started to notice that I was feeling a bit anxious whilst riding on the back of the scooter Aidan was driving. And I start to feel my fingers digging into him, feeling a bit nervous and uncomfortable going on this scooter. And eventually I realized, it took me like a couple of weeks to realize, a couple of weeks of like mild anxiety to realize that it was actually the coffee that was doing it. And now I am back to having no coffee. Again, I'm not suggesting this is going to be the same for anyone, but if you currently drink a lot of coffee and you've never cut it out to see what will happen to your anxiety, then it would be well worth a try. And I would recommend keeping a bit of a diary. So noticing how you feel day to day, tracking those anxiety levels as you cut out the coffee, and seeing maybe after 2 weeks if it has had an impact on you. And again, you may be absolutely fine. I hope you are. I wish I could drink coffee. I wish I could be one of these people that drinks a coffee in the morning and just like bashes out a load of work and gets really in the zone and inspired. And I don't know, there's something glamorous about that. But unfortunately, I just have to stick to tea because I can't handle it. Okay, here's the last one, number 5. This is something that I've given up. I've given up saying yes to everything. Now, it might be something about my age. I'm 38 now, and maybe I would have said a different thing when I was younger. But now I've got to an age where I've realized that if we say yes to everything, we can very easily end up doing things that we don't want to do, that we don't have time for, that we don't have capacity for, that end up being a waste of time. And so I am really selective these days on what I say yes to. And this is your permission slip to perhaps also do the same. So when I say yes to too many things, I have a packed diary, no time to reflect, no time to be creative, no time to rest. And for me, I really thrive when there's some white space in my calendar in order to do my best work, in order to take care of myself, to think clearly, to have this spacious feeling of flow that I like to be in when I'm doing my work, and to not be grumpy and rushed and stressed. And so for me, saying no to things, and in fact, I remember listening to Tim Ferriss's podcast. If anyone knows Tim Ferriss, he's a big podcaster. And he says in his emails to let people down gently when he doesn't want to have a meeting with them, or when he doesn't have time to have a meeting with them. He says, I'm on a no meeting diet at the moment. So I don't know how well it would go down if you started telling people at work you're on a no meeting diet. But it's an interesting concept to have almost like a default setting of saying no to things, having a policy. And I think this might also be from Tim Ferriss. He talks about having a policy of turning down any unpaid work, for example, having a policy of not working in the evenings. Saying that you have a policy of something can just be a great way of communicating to someone you'll know in a way that makes it seem like it's not personal to them. I have a policy of, not working in the evenings, not working at the weekends. I say no to most things, and it just creates a lot more space and freedom. And it enables me to say yes to the things that I really want to say yes to. So I would love to know from you, what is something that you have given up because of anxiety? And did it help you? Or maybe you tried giving up coffee and it, did absolutely nothing for you. You tried giving up alcohol and your anxiety levels remained the same. I could add alcohol to that, but that's a whole other episode. Maybe I'll talk about that again on another episode. Come and let me know on Instagram. I'd love to know what you think about this. What have you given up for anxiety? Or as a result of listening to this, are you going to be giving any of these things a try yourself? Are you going to go on a no meeting diet or have a policy of not working after 5 p.m? Or maybe you're going to leave London or stop drinking coffee. Come and let me know. I'm at Chloe Brotheridge over on Instagram. And just as that reminder, you can get a discount of 15% on everything in my shop if you enter the code podcast, all in capitals, 15, the number 15. And I hope you have a great week ahead. I'll see you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.